Hi guys, is NATO dead? Well, one of the founding principles of the alliance is Article 5, which states, and I quote, "The parties agree that an armed attack against one or more of them in Europe or North America shall be considered an attack against them all. And consequently, they agree that, if such an armed attack occurs, each of them, in exercise of the right of individual or collective self-defense, recognized by Article 51 of the Charter of the United Nations, will assist the party or parties so attacked by taking forthwith, individually and in concert with other parties, such action as it deems necessary, including the use of armed force to restore and maintain the security of the North Atlantic area." So with one, if not the most important member, the United States, being ruled by an unreliable, compromised individual, can European NATO members be sure that Article 5 will be upheld? CNN spoke to retired U.S. Admiral James Stavridis and asked him if NATO is coming to an end.
You, of course, commanded NATO forces in Europe. I wonder, what are NATO member states and their leaders, America's treaty allies, thinking tonight after this display in the Oval Office?
Yeah, let's start actually in Moscow, where they're not popping champagne because they're under sanctions from France, but they're breaking out the best bottles of vodka. Everybody's very, very happy in Moscow, and you see that across Russian television. Now let's shift to Brussels, where the greatest pool of allies, partners, and friends the United States could possibly have in the world are fellow democracies across this transatlantic bridge. There is despair. There is deep concern and sadness over the way Volodymyr Zelensky was treated in the Oval Office, the way he was simply, I think, ambushed by the president and the vice president in a display that really does shame to the Oval Office of the United States. I think the question now, Jim, is what happens in Europe? Let's face it, the spotlight will now go to Europe. Donald Trump has made it clear he wants no part of helping Ukraine going forward. It's a geopolitical mistake of epic proportion. Now the lights go on in Europe. They're going to have to step up and take this on.
As you know, Trump has not just warned Ukraine it's in effect on its own. I mean, he said that to Europe effectively. And the way European leaders are taking that, Friedrich Merz among them, soon to be Chancellor of Germany, is that they cannot rely on the U.S. to enforce Article 5 of the NATO treaty. Is that a fair concern on their part? Has Trump effectively, if not by signing a document, removed the U.S. from the alliance?
I think we are headed possibly, I don't want to overstate this, I don't want to be overly dramatic, but we could be looking at the last days of NATO. And this is a gut issue about who are you going to support? A democracy that's under attack, or are you going to support a dictator in Moscow? This is going to drive a wedge deep into the heart of the alliance, and it's going to bleed over beyond Ukraine, as you point out, Jim, correctly, as to whether or not the United States can be trusted as a partner.
No, the United States can no longer be trusted as a partner. And as James pointed out here, Admiral James pointed out, it's not just about Ukraine, it's about Eastern European nations who are fearing not just Russian tanks rolling into their capital cities, but also cyber attacks. They're worried about Russian influence in general in the media. They're worried about the Kremlin trying to divide and undermine their democracies. They're worried about puppet regimes being put into their countries. So it's not just, the focus, of course, is on Ukraine. But for NATO, it's over. It's completely over. Because European nations can no longer rely on the United States. While Donald Trump's fight, it seems, is with Zelensky in Ukraine, he's unreliable. And if the United States is an unreliable partner, then you don't have an alliance. That's it. It's over. It's done. NATO is dead. Or it's almost dead. Because, once again, it's not just about Ukraine. It's about the alliance as a whole. And Donald Trump has sent a message. either directly from himself or from his administration, that the United States is not going to come to Europe's aid if it's attacked by Russia. They have said, you're on your own. So there is no alliance. So NATO is dead. Article 5 is no longer worth anything. It's not worth the paper it's written on. So Europe has to decide, okay, what are we going to do now? Because Putin has been trying to influence Eastern European nations over the last number of years. It's not just about Ukraine. Ask people in Estonia what they think about Putin and the Kremlin. And we know that if Putin succeeds in Ukraine, he won't stop there. Once again, it's not just about this idea of tanks rolling into European capitals. It's about the sphere of influence. So, once again, if Trump is in charge, NATO is dead. Trump, even if he signs a paper tomorrow saying, yes, I will back Ukraine, we can't trust that. Because we know he's unreliable. Because we know he will tear up an agreement. So, as long as Donald Trump's in the White House, there will be no NATO. And I think this is also setting a framework or setting a foundation for the future. Even if Donald Trump was replaced tomorrow, even if there were elections tomorrow and the Democrats won, I don't think the United States could become a trusted partner in NATO anymore. I think it's over. Even if a Democrat was in charge tomorrow, the alliance is dead. And European nations and the United Kingdom need to wake up and smell that coffee. They need to realize it's over. Once again, a founding principle within that alliance is if one member is attacked, the others support that party, that individual country. But we know that's not the case anymore because Donald Trump has said we don't want anything to do with Europe. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.